Senator Linares, followed by Hamid Kumal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to be here. Spending a lot of time at the Transportation Committee this year. It's a very exciting committee, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. During my campaign, I ran on, and like most of us, the idea of creating jobs in this state and encouraging innovative businesses to come to Connecticut, to move to Connecticut, to employ the next generation workforce. And I think what we're seeing here with Uber is a company that is exploding with growth, and we shouldn't be looking to regulate that. We should be looking to accentuate that, and we should be encouraging that growth in Connecticut. And that's why I'm here today. That's what I'm here to talk about. It's my understanding that Uber is creating 50,000 jobs a month across the globe. That is an incredible rate. We haven't seen anything like that since Facebook. And just like the internet, we didn't get in the way of its growth. We allowed it to develop on its own, and we allowed entrepreneurs to do what they do best, to innovate and to grow jobs. So I'm here today to support Uber. In fact, I would actually like to see more Uber drivers in my district. I think it's an excellent way for young people to get home safely at the end of the night. We actually have a bar in my district that is frequented by many young people, and it's a great place, and there's nothing wrong with that. But one of the issues that I see is that when I drive past this bar, people come from all over the Connecticut shoreline to meet with their friends. But when I drive past this place, I see a parking lot full of cars. And at the end of the night, people are driving home. And really, what they should be doing is taking Ubers back home safely. And I think every parent in the state of Connecticut would agree with me on that. So I think it's a great way for young people to get home safe. I think it's a great way to avoid DUIs. And I think it's something that we should be looking into accentuating in Connecticut, not regulating. Also, it's my understanding that taxi cab crime has gone down since Uber has been developed in our neighboring states, and that's a good thing as well. I know that access to rides for the disabled and for seniors will only increase if we increase the amount of Uber drivers in this state. And ultimately, I don't think that this is a fight, or should be a fight, between taxi drivers and Uber drivers. I think that what we're seeing here is a new vehicle, a new model that is very effective, very efficient, very innovative, and that we're watching the marketplace do what it does best and tell us who the winner is. And we're seeing Airbnb become very successful because they're offering a product that is, in some ways, superior. We're seeing Uber become very successful because they're offering a superior product. We're seeing Tesla become very successful.
Easy there, Senator. Easy.
And so these are the kind of companies that we should be looking to support, as you know, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. And I would ask that, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
don't mean to cut you off, but I did hear the
problem.
bell there, and I want to be fair with everyone.
You bet.
You know, Senator, I think everyone on this committee will say that we want to enhance competition. We want business to grow, but I do have to, one part of your statement, I have to say that we have to make sure, though, that we have a level playing field also. That if we have competition coming in, that we have to make sure there's, you know, that whoever it may be, any consumer that goes into that vehicle has background checks, liability insurance, and inspections. If we are able to do that, I feel comfortable. I can sleep at night knowing that we've done our job in regards to putting the public less at risk. How we go about doing that, obviously, we'll have to. It might be a work in progress. It might be something that we may implement this year. Look at it as a year down the road to see how it's working under the DOT. But again, I do understand what you're saying, but I also want to make sure that, the safety mechanisms are in place, and I'm sure you do too.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And, ultimately, we have to do what's appropriate to keep the safety of our constituency in mind. And I know that this committee is thoughtful and will certainly do that, but I ask you also to, consider the amount of growth that we're seeing here so that we can come up with a balanced solution.
Thank you, Senator Linares. Senator Boucher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Linares. Linares, you're right. It's almost like you've become a member of the Transportation Committee.
I asked to be on the committee, but didn't make it.
You didn't ask me.
Next time I will.
Well, it is important to have your voice because not only are you one of the younger state senators, but also an entrepreneur, someone that's done very well with new innovative ideas. And what this whole issue has brought forward, as well as the others that we talked about, is what happens when there's a new device, product, or service. In this case, we're talking about a service versus an actual product or a car that disrupts the status quo and really changes the whole landscape for everybody. That it's one thing when you have an automobile, you have warranties and product liability rules that govern that, lemon laws and so forth. But when you also start with a new service, it also raises some of the issues that were discussed today from the standpoint of how far do you go to protect the consumer without really harming the new way of doing things. And you can't stop people. It'll happen because it'll happen in other states. As you've heard, if you were here earlier, there are some states and some cities, large cities, that are nearly 80% Uber-type models that are functioning there that have really changed the landscape of the whole taxi business. But there's no question that there are those that have spent years and great costs in the current system that we have. So the question is, how do you balance those interests without really stopping the new direction from going forward?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I understand exactly what you're speaking about, and I think ultimately the market will really dictate where we need to head as a government and as regulators. And I think that I agree we have to come up with thoughtful solutions, but throughout this process we can learn a lot from these companies as well. And one of the things we can learn is their criminal background check program is fast. There might be ways that we can improve upon our own background check program by learning from how they do it faster, how they do it more affordably. Certainly we need to learn how to cut costs in the state level. So there's a lot we can learn from these open discussions. And as someone that is just very passionate about entrepreneurship, I just wanted to come here and share my thoughts with you as a committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And it appears there are already some learning taking place because some of the more frustrating aspects of trying to get a taxi is probably going through the different layers of reaching someone and then scheduling and so forth. But the new Uber app seems like it's starting to be adopted also by the taxi cab industry too. So there may be some learning that occurs on both sides. So thank you very much for coming forward and testifying today.
Thank you, Senator Boucher. Representative Wilms.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Senator, for your comments. I listened with great interest to your views and your perspective, and I want to echo the Chairman's comments. Obviously, I'm personally also concerned about making sure that, and as I know you are, in terms of background checks, insurance, things we've discussed, that those are adequately dealt with. But I was particularly struck by one of your comments, which was talking about the power of offering consumers choices. I mean, on the one hand, government can help consumers by protecting them from being exploited or taken advantage of, but on the other hand, government can also help consumers by giving them more choices and options and empowering them. And I was really struck by your comments in that area. And I guess I want to ask you the same question I've asked some others this morning. Is it seems to me that Uber is more than just an app. I mean, I can have all sorts of apps on my phone, but it doesn't mean that I'm actually going to use the service or repeatedly use the service. And I was wondering, from what you've heard or what you've seen, is there some sort of qualitative difference in the service that maybe people are getting from an Uber ride versus maybe a traditional yellow cab ride?
Well, I use Uber frequently. Most of the times when I do business in New York City, I tend to use Uber quite often. And what I've recognized about this business, and it's not an application, you're right, it's an incredible service. What I've recognized is how seamless it is, whereas it's very convenient. You're able to cut out a lot of the issues that you may have had in the traditional experience of getting a ride. And so, I think those are the kind of companies that we find go on to be very successful, or the companies that find ways to improve the service, whether it be making it more affordable, whether it be making it more convenient. Those are the kinds of improvements we're seeing. Both of those improvements from Uber, and so I think that's why it's successful, and the market is telling us that. And certainly the younger generation, most of us have Uber apps on our phone. Yep.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It's funny how Representative, they keep saying the younger generation. I'm waiting, Senator. What are you going to say with that one? We are the younger generation still.
I was including you in that.
Okay.
Chairman.
What? I guess he really wants that Tesla bill, huh? Representative Carney.
Thank you very much, Senator Linares. Senator Linares is actually my state senator, so I always love it when he comes in here. But you had mentioned with young people going out to bars, and I agree with you. You frequently see a lot of cars parked there. Have you ever tried to or know of anybody that's ever tried to get a taxi ride or get an Uber ride along the Connecticut shoreline?
It's very difficult to get a taxi where we're from, as you know, Representative. It's incredibly challenging, and I think there might be one business that has one vehicle. So I've personally reached out to Uber to try and ask them to find ways to open up shop in Eastern Connecticut, because I think it would improve the safety and quality of life for everyone. And so, ultimately, I think Uber is the kind of company that can provide that solution to the problem we have. Also, I failed to mention this, but I want to take this moment. It's also a great way for young people to start their own business, to be self-employed, to be entrepreneurs, to learn what it's like to run their own company. And it's also a really good way for immigrants to start their own business. And I think that's something we should be encouraging. So, hopefully throughout this process, we will be able to encourage Uber to open up in our neck of the woods.
I got to say, no clapping. All right. Representative?
All right. Oh, thank you very much for that, Senator.
Thank you, Representative.
I want to be fair across the aisle here, so Ubers or taxi, please, refrain from the clapping, if you would, please. Any other comments? Senator, it's been interesting today listening to both sides of the issue here, and I used Uber once, and that was in Boston, because I guess I'm not part of that younger generation. But my daughter used it, and she loved it, all right? But, we have to be conscious of the safety aspect and all that. And I try to, honestly, when I look at some of these issues, I try to put myself in everyone's position out there. And I say to myself, I am a business owner, an entrepreneur out there. For many my members, I'm sure, understand I have a construction business. But I can't tell someone, I would want the same regulations or laws in place if someone came in to Connecticut and said that they're going to start digging up a road but didn't have to have the same licenses or whatever it may be. With that said, if that company comes in and has a better way of doing it and I don't, then who am I to say that they can't do that? So I have to be conscious of all that. If there's a better mechanism that works, but the issues are still the same out there, then either I need to adjust or reevaluate the business plan out there.
I completely agree, Mr. Chairman. Competition breeds improvement, and it also drives down the price of goods. So I think we're seeing that improvement in this app. It's a new model. It's innovative, and I think ultimately the market will change because of this new grand opportunity that we have in Uber. And as a business owner myself, I understand where you're coming from.
Any other comments? Senator Linares. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
We have to get going here because the older generation can't